wanna pick it up quicker than I get it.
This match is now officially a Judy Bagwell on a forklift match.
Broken, thankless, push you down, open.
As always, a huge shout out to Market Reason 9 for the theme song Gloom Phase for On A Forklift, and welcome to On A Forklift Wrestling Podcast, but Wrestling Podcast in name only, because we will talk about anything at any time, given that it is an appropriate topic. Now, once again, it's just me here. Clint's not here, but that's okay. You guys know me, so I'll pop my name up. So Hoochie Daddy Ethan James. You can find me on Instagram at Hoochie Daddy EJ. Now, if you're wondering who I'm still getting used to that. If you're wondering who this fine gentleman next to me is, he is an actor. He is a professional wrestler. He is an action actor. He's a teacher. He is just a student of just about everything possible. This is Tully Bertorelli, and you can find him at Tully Bertorelli on Instagram. Tully, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. First off, I'm not quite a teacher. It's a special ed classroom assistant.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No
he
problem.
is a
lot of people think when I talk about my shoot job, like, oh, you're a teacher. I'm like, the title is called Sika. You know.
And the nice thing is that there are something specific, so it's very classified.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing. You've started to take, because teacher is a very broad horizons type,
right, of course,
for things. And a lot of people can be teachers for different things. So special education is quite a noble field to go into. Is that something that you had set out to enter, or kind of like fallen into that and then ran with it?
Yeah. So let's go back in time to something called COVID-19. Before the pandemic, I was working at a bar in Chicago, and when COVID happened, bars were closed down in Chicago. I was looking for the next best thing to do because my bar completely closed. The owner shut down the place. It was the coolest place ever. It was called Little Jim's Tavern. Really fun bar in Halstead in Chicago. And so when I did that, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? Am I going to stay in the bar life? You're in recovery. Is it smart to work in the bar life? So I was like, you know what? Let me work at a gym. So I worked at a gym for a little bit. I became top trainer, became fitness director, realized I hated the fitness industry because when you're selling personal training during the pandemic, it was so hard for these people to buy PT. So I talked to my folks, and my mom recommended to me saying, oh, you should go back to school for special ed because you grew up sped yourself, which a lot of people don't know about me. And so she's like, you should help your teachers. So one of my teachers is actually a principal now. And so I emailed him saying, hey, I'm interested in going back to school for special ed. What do you think I should do? And the first thing he said to me was, first off, why would you go back to school? You should probably, have you ever thought about being a Sika? And I'm like, what's that? He's like, well, it's a special ed classroom assistant role. You basically are in the classroom. You work with kids with IEPs, so either they're ADHD, ADD, or they have an emotional disability, anxiety and stuff like that. And so he's like, give that a shot and then see if you like it. And so I applied. I started working there, and it's been 3 years later. And not only am I a special ed classroom assistant at the school, I also coach the football team. I help out with the drama program at the high school. And honestly, I really enjoyed working in it. People ask me all the time, what's it like working in a high school? And it's not like what we were like in high school, but it's just nice to be around younger kids and seeing what kids like and everything like that. I always laugh because a lot of kids wear My Chemical Romance shirts. And I remember being in high school, that was the band that was in when I was in high school. So I play the thing that we punks used to do, name 3 songs from My Chemical Romance. You know, it's like,
vampires. You know what they do to guys like us in prison in the Black Parade?
Teenagers.
Yeah.
Okay, I promise.
It's a ragtime. It's a ragtime song, and I'll stand by that. Ever since I've been shown that, Teenagers is a ragtime song, and it's fantastic.
Yes.
That's a exceptionally great thing. Sorry, I grew up kind of in that realm as well. Like, I feel like the public school system at the time wasn't very good for recognizing it, and I probably needed to be in that realm. I grade wise, I was great. Behavioral and like paying attention, I was on that level of like, hey, you need somebody to keep you.
Look, I had an acute deficit order. I had a language and hearing impairment. Like, I went through speech therapy from age 4 to 18. The high school I went to in Chicago was like the #1 high school in Illinois. Big shout out to Walter Payton College Prep. But like, I grew up sped. So like, going into a select enrollment high school as being a sped student was really intimidating. So when I started working at this school I am at now, it's just like, I get what the kids are going through, because like, I have that sixth sense. I'm like, hey man, you got to do this homework, man, because I was there too, man.
I think that's incredibly special that they have somebody that has a background in it as well. And it's not to say that people without a background in it can't be helpful, but you have a different way to relate with them. So that's something that's something that brings that up. Now, so if you don't mind, you said football coach and drama instructor, drama director. This is co-drama director. This is quite the interesting clash of worlds in most people's eyes, but I think that they both go hand together really well.
I'm telling you, man. I tell people all the time this. I joke and say, yeah, I'm real life Glee Club. It's based on me. But no, football and drama go so hand in hand, because you work with these students and you build them up while they fall. And that's just like football. That's just like theater and everything like that. When you have to bring them to that momentum. If they fall, you bring them back up. You know, quote Chumbawamba. They get knocked down, you get back up again.
Get back up again. Just hopefully no whiskey drinks and vodka drinks there in high school.
Or lager drinks
lager drinks or cider drinks. Yeah. We just tub thumped. But they do go hand in hand, because there's one key word that fits between both of those demographics, and that's the word play.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, my thing is at the school, I don't let the kids call me sir or mister. They just call me coach. So I'm not Coach Bertorelli. I'm actually Coach Tully there, because I like to be more personal with the students, because one, every person, and especially in wrestling, mispronounces my last name, and I don't want to be called Bertoli or Bertinelli or Briscoli or Scapoli or anything like that. I'm like, it's Coach Tully or Coach T. And I just have the kids call me coach, and it's just wicked cool. You know, I also, being heavily tattooed in public schools, man, I'm telling you, man, it's like, it's a cool pass.
Oh yeah. No,
the kids see the tattoos and they're like, he's the cool Sika, you know?
We had that.
He's been through shit, you know?
I had a teacher in high school. I never had him. He was a physics teacher. But he always wore long sleeves, and we're like, oh, well, like, what's the deal there? Well, then one of the kids got a hold of that he played in like a rockabilly band. And they're like, hey, you know, Porter plays in a band. So a couple of us found videos, early days of YouTube, but like 2005, 2006. We found a video that somebody had posted of his band, and he's got his sleeves rolled up, and we found out he's got like the flame tattoos with the dice all the way up his arms on both hands. And we're like, that's why he's got the sleeves down all the time, because they didn't want him to have them.
Well, my first day at the school, I wore sleeves down, and then like one day, I rolled them up, and my student noticed I had tattoos, and they related more. And a lot of the kids saw my tattoos, and I just owned up to it. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I have over 64 tattoos.
Yeah. I got like 5, but I get it. It's a cool thing. Trust me. I go to pick my daughter up from school, and the kids will be like, oh, what is that? And they'll look at it, and you just got like 6 kids just like, what's on your arm? And I think that's one of the coolest things about being around the school, is that obviously elementary school, high school are completely different, but you still have something relatable. There's something that grabs their attention, and maybe even maybe that opens the door for them to be able to talk to you a little bit, maybe open up about what they're going through.
What you just said, it's a way to open up. They're able to open up to you, because if you didn't have tattoos, in my honest opinion, if you didn't have tattoos, they think you'd be more strict.
Mm-hmm. They see you as more of an authority figure instead of a life coach, really.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I used to have a beard, and then as of recently, I decided to go with a goatee because I'll tell you a running gag. I feel like every bald, bearded tattoo guy is in wrestling now, and we need a championship belt for it, and it's called the Baldwin Championship. And being that you have to be bald, but like everyone was bald and had a beard, and so like I was tired of it. So I go to my barber one day. I was like, "Man, what do you think I should do with my face?" He's like, "What ideas do you have?" I'm like, "Oh, what if I did sideburns and like a goatee and like maybe?" And he's like, "Bro, like you have no hair on top of your head. It would just look weird." I'm like, "Well, what do you think I should do?" He's like, "Well, why don't you just rock a goatee?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. Like, what if the kids like don't notice me?" He's like, "They'll notice you." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know, man." And I did it. And I remember going in a Spanish class. One of my students said to me, he's like, "Hey, coach, are you Stone Cold Steve Austin now? Are we going to call you Stone Cold Coach? We're going to call you Coach Berg or Big Coach?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." But
that's awesome though.
I thought it was hilarious. And so this kid now, every time I'm in Spanish class, "Hey, what's up, Stone Cold Coach?" And this kid,
that's fantastic.
He's a wrestling fan, but he doesn't really, and it just makes me laugh. And now that I have like the goatee now, like a lot more people like it's also good for acting, because not only do I look like a biker, but when I wear long sleeves, I look authority.
Mm-hmm.
Like
you kind of have that. You could float between PC principal and like biker, and
I can
it works.
I can be the criminal, but then I could be the prison guard.
Oh yeah. Look, Big Boss Man. Big Boss Man had that. To take it back to wrestling for a second, he had the goatee. Regard whatever iteration he was in, almost always had the goatee.
Yeah.
No, that's the biggest. That's what I find is so cool, is the different ways that people connect with one another. And so we talked a little bit off air. So right now you guys are leading up to a big production.
Yeah. So we're doing a spring production. This is our first full real run of the theater program at my school I'm at. We're doing a rendition of Peter Pan.
Okay.
So far we've done Wizard of Oz, we've done Clue, and now we're doing Peter Pan. And I'm excited, man. The kids just keep on. We get more numbers, and the cast grows more and more, and I'm just really happy with this cast. I'm actually one of three other directors, so like I'm the backstage crew. I hope my kids don't see this on the air, but like I'm also playing a part in the play. It's a running gag that we always do with the plays, starting with Wizard of Oz. When I was in Wizard of Oz, I was the giant tree.
Nice. Just
think
of it like you were an ant.
Yeah, well, it was a joke that the director said to me. My buddy Sai was like, "Hey, man, would you like to be a tree in Wizard of Oz?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "I just think it'd be funny if you show up with two branches." Because originally we were going to give it to a kid, but then he gave it to me, and then like the kids laughed at it, but then the kids that were on stage felt more comfortable, and that's that support. So it made perfect sense. So then when we did Clue, originally I was just going to hang out with the FBI agent. But then when the guy who was supposed to be our FBI agent, which was our security guard, because he always hangs out doing overtime after school with the kids and everything like that, being the security guard of school, he couldn't do it. So the teacher asked me, my buddy Sai asked me, he's like, "Can you be the FBI agent?" And so this time around, I'm actually the crocodile.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. That's super cool.
The wolf, but I'm the crocodile that's going to eat Captain Hook. But the cool thing is, like, I'm also making the props. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing for Peter Pan, it's very handmade props. Like we made the crocodile costume. We're making the moons and the stars and all that fun stuff. We're trying to make it more like not store bought stuff. Like when we did Wizard of Oz, I had like a lot of people in the costume world because I have a lot of connections in Chicago. Fantasy Costumes, big shout out to them. They helped us tremendously when we did Wizard of Oz. This time around, we want everything to be made in shop.
And that's the cool thing that you do have about that is that, especially with Peter Pan, so you've got the Lost Boys, everything is kind of patchwork together. It's made of, of how they were able to survive. So it doesn't necessarily have to be straight up. I was going to say the Clue thing's awesome. I don't know. We've got a Tim Curry shrine up here. We're massive Rocky and Clue fans in this house. Rocky, Clue.
Dude, it's so
everything.
Fun. The kids watched Clue for the first time before they did the play. And it's so funny. I wasn't there because I was coaching football, but it was just really funny that I asked the director, I was like, so how'd they take it? He's like, I think it's just it's the generation gap. Keep in mind, a lot of these kids, and big shout out to all my kids out there at my school that they're awesome, but they lost 2 years of learning.
Yeah.
And also life too.
Yeah, so, I have a sister who just turned 18. She's in her senior year of high school. I'm 33. So it's like there's a huge gap between us. And I watched her lose that 2 years.
But she's not 18. She's 6.
Luckily, she's gotten to grow up with my parents being older. My parents.
But what I meant is, kids that are in schools now, the freshmen are 7th graders. The sophomores are 8th graders. The juniors are freshmen and the seniors are sophomore brains. It's not quite developed. The awkward phase of their life, which you and I have gone through, was in lockdown with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is this, we were all trying to survive, but these next 10 years, this is what it is. And the thing is this, it's more mental health than anything. And I am pro therapy and I'm pro mental health in the sense of being a football coach and you can't do it like we did in 2006. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, you can't belittle a player to that level because their thing is they have not developed that strong, brain. They eventually will, but it takes time.
Yeah, I get it. I think luckily in a sense she had the camaraderie because she was playing hockey through that entire time. She was in the sports program. She had friends and worked up through that. But I see it happen with other people, with my friends. I have some friends that have kids that are going into high school now. That's the crazy thing to me is I have friends that I remember my sister being born and then my friends having kids 2 years later and their kids are going into high school. And I'm like, how are you even dealing with this? I have a 5-year-old and I can't fathom
brother. I am
her
not
losing
married.
That.
I don't have kids. My brother got married last year and has 2 of his own, and they're the best kids on the planet. But the thing is this, it's wild to me now that I have friends that have their kids going into high school, but also it makes me, it's pretty wild that I'm the last guy to get married or have kids. That's
the weird thing to me is I have a bunch of friends from high school that have kids, but my core group of friends, everybody has just adopted my daughter as their niece, and they're yeah, I get my kid. I come over to your house and get my kid fixed. That's it.
Trust me, I'm an uncle for a lot of my friends' kids. I'm Uncle Tully, not just to my brother's kids, but
oh, you're probably the coolest uncle too.
I'm all right. My brother tells me to stop doing voices to his oldest, because I kept on doing Dustin Hoffman, Captain Hook voice for a while.
Oh, that's beautiful. But Hook's such a fun movie.
Yeah, we call him Claudio. So instead of Rufio, I'll be like Claudio, and he is deadly afraid of that deep voice, Claudio.
I think the whole theater thing is fantastic. If I had a regret that I would do over again, it would be actually being part of it instead of just being on the AV club.
Dude, when I was in high school, man, what happened was, and so this is my upbringing. A lot of people don't know about this. I didn't do drama in high school, dude. I was a jock. Not only was I a jock, I hosted open mics. at the Old Town School of Folk Music on Armitage. I used to host the teen open mic every month from age 14 to 18. So that was my stage presence. I used to do early stand-up called Life Lessons with Tully, and all I talked about was hitting puberty before everyone else because I was like the giant among
Dude,
everybody.
This speaking to me. Unfortunately I didn't get the giant thing. I got like fourth grade, I was 5'9", and then I just stopped and I watched all my friends grow up around me. And I was like, sweet, I'm gonna be tall. This is gonna be cool. And then I'm like, hey, how are you? And I've been the same height ever since then. So, but I get it. High school, that's what I did. I played hockey, hurt myself. I went to swim. Now, the nice thing about when I was on the swim team is our school was so bad in sports that the swim team basically became like we were the Mod Podge group. So like all the kids that needed something to do, they were like, hey, we can swim. We were like, I loved it. I loved the collective of people that we had on the team because there's 16 of us. We were all weirdos. We were all strange. We were all the guys.
I'll put it this way, man. When your high school is named after the world's greatest running back, Walter Payton, and your football team is mediocre, just kind of saying you something that like, oh man.
Oh yeah, we won one football game my entire high school career.
That's amazing. You and I have a great upbringing. But no, like I used to play flute in a band. You know, I used to play flute in a punk band called Friar Tull's Merry Men. I used to recruit kids to play Wild Thing when I played it on the flute, and then I would sing. You couldn't hear the flute to save your life. And I was in a ska band called Captain Crunch's Serial Killers.
I love ska. Don't get me started. I love ska.
Ska's the best thing ever. Look it up. If you don't know what ska music is, look it up. Adults, ska music is still alive today. But the thing is this, like, I did that, but then also when I was in sport, like, the cool thing about our high school is we did seminar days, which was a separate day of learning. You learn a different skill every semester. So I did the spoken word class, and that's how I learned how to do performance poetry. You know, so I couldn't be on the slam team, but like that's in a way learning slam. I was able to learn how to memorize and everything like that. And then my senior year, I wanted to take drama, but no one signed up. So I was stuck with just doing art classes, you know, because I do art on the side too. Pen and ink and marker is my thing, and comic book style. But then when I went to Bridgeton Academy, which was a postgraduate school in Maine, I put on a sketch show where I parodied the Christmas Carol. And then my freshman year in college, I took an acting class. And I knew right away I didn't want to be a journalist. I didn't want to be an animator. I didn't want to be a graphic designer. I wanted to be an actor. Within 2 weeks of my major.
So going to that school and going to a sketch show, what was your influential sketch group? Because there's so many of them out there, but I know like Chicago, you got Second City, there's Second City.
So when I was in prep school, man, when I was graduating high school, I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to be a punk rocker, or I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I couldn't be both. My parents said that. So I went to boarding school at a school called Bridgeton Academy in North Bridgeton, Maine. Shane McMahon actually went there, which is pretty fun. That's the only reason why I went, because Shane McMahon went there. And I wrote him a letter, and he wrote me back. I was one of the only students that could do it. It was wicked cool. I learned how to speak New England. I learned how to develop a New Hampshire accent, which I can do later. But I recruited a bunch of kids that never did theater before, and we just put on a sketch show, and it was just very much like Scrooge waking up and having the Ghost of Christmas Past, like going through all these like Christmas portals, and then gets shot in the eye by like the guy from the Christmas Story. Yeah.
Not going to shoot your eye out, but you're going to shoot Scrooge out. I had a group of friends in high school, and it's crazy to me now looking at all of us. Two of them are in a rapidly growing metal band. It's a 2-piece outfit that's kind of sweet. They just played like 6 shows over the weekend, which is wild to me. And then like we would all just do this stuff and upload it to YouTube. And I look back and I go, why didn't we go and sign up? Why weren't we in drama? We used to hang around with all the kids in drama. We had friends that were in it.
You know what?
Why didn't we go and put?
The thing is, this is your time will come. You know, the bug will get there. You know, like when I was done with college, I studied at the Improv Olympic. But before that, I waited a whole year to study at IO, because when I moved back, I was in pro wrestling, and when I was at these like parties that were like hosted by all these improvisers in Chicago, like I met so many improvisers. They knew me as the wrestler. And so like I would go to these parties and I would meet people from Second City, Annoyance, and like Improv Olympic. And I was like, oh man, like where should I go? And I remember my boy Sherman Edwards, big shout out to him. He's like, dude, if you want to get your ass kicked, go to Improv Olympic. And I remember I lost my job as a bank teller. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I signed up for improv, and it changed my life. And learned long form improv, and I was able to be an audience plan on Steve Harvey. I was able to be on Drunk History. And then within that, I did a movie where I did extra work called Divergence, which was like my first major film that ever I learned what like being on a real set, which was pretty cool. So
yeah, I mean that's something I cannot say that. Like I grew up watching like Kids in the Hall, Whitest Kids You Know, things like that. That's a lot.
Oh, dude,
that's a lot of what drove us.
Love Saturday Night Live and Living Color were my thing.
Yeah, we had a lot of we had access to a lot of Canadian television, which is really weird. And Canada had Fuse. Really easy to get like over the airwaves, so we watched a lot of that stuff. A lot of Trailer Park Boys, which was not good, by the way. Yeah. I love it.
Remember the one sketch from White Kids in the Hall with the tattoo shop with Bowser surfing?
Vaguely.
It's basically him going to a shop and talking to a tattoo artist. He's like, "Hey man, can you do like Bowser?" And the guy's like from Mario? He's like, "Yeah, I want Bowser to like ride a surfboard and like play the ukulele," and like he just adds on and adds on and adds on, and then finally it reveals the tattoo, and it's just like that stuff. But yeah, I remember early days of Fuse, man. Like I always thought Fuse was way better than MTV because they actually played like music videos I liked.
Well, and then they would play music videos, and then you had things like Pants Off, Dance Off that would happen, and it'd be like 11, and you're like, no, Mom, don't come in my room. You got to stop. You can't come in here. I'm not watching anything I shouldn't be. And then they would just end before it would get to the whatever of it.
Yeah.
Man, what a wild thing. And so the improv thing, was that just you did the poetry, so improv comedy, like all of this is kind of.
I did poetry in high school. When I graduated college, my mentor told me to move back to Chicago, quit professional wrestling, and get into comedy. I did not quit pro wrestling, but I got into improv comedy, and I studied at the Improv Olympic when they used to be in Wrigley. So
that's phenomenal. I know we were talking off air about Wrigley and the cultural impact of that, like Blues Brothers, like it's West Addison, things like that. Given the address,
well, the thing is this, man. Like, so I grew up Chicago proper. Like, I grew up in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I always joke around when people hail from Chicago. I'm like, dude, let me see your ID. Dude, you're from Midlothian.
You're from Naperville.
Like I was born in Evanston Hospital, but I was raised in Chicago my whole life. I was introduced to so much culture. But the thing is, this is like seeing Chicago now. It's just, I feel like every metropolitan city is the same. You have the Starbucks, you have the Dunkin', you have the KFC, you have the the Popeyes, you have McDonald's, you have Burger. I miss local mom and pop Chicago. I miss the local coffee shop. I miss that stuff. But like, it's hard to run a local business in this day and age now. Either everything's online, or if you're a restaurant, you can only survive for 10 years. It's
or you end up with
survive.
Or you end up with the overdevelopment of things where somebody comes in and buys the entire block. That's what I do love. I love living like, and I will never say I'm from Detroit. I will be very honest. I'm from the Detroit metro area. I am not from Detroit. I've never lived in Detroit. I worked in Detroit for almost 6 years, straight downtown, Detroit address, everything. And I was in the middle of some of the I was a stone's throw away from some of the best restaurants I've ever eaten at, as long as you don't ask what you're eating. And
yeah,
that's, to me, that's culture in a city. That's what it is. Like if I wanted Indian, Polish, Mexican, some form of Asian food, chili dogs, which not my super big fan, but I could get about 7 different kinds within a thing. If I wanted checkers, it was right down the street. I love food.
Is a chili dog considered a coney dog?
I don't know what the definition is. I get chili mustard onions. That's my go-to. My go-to is chili.
No, because there used to be in Chicago. There was a place called Coney Island, and they had like a Detroit dog.
So Coney, I think that there's something that's got to have something else on it. I have no idea. There's a place around here. It's a little yellow shack. It sits on the side of the road. It's cash only. It's called Bill's Hot Dog Stand. They make their own root beer. You can get root beer, hot dogs, or a loose burger. Chili mustard onions and a half gallon of root beer, and I'm on my way. And that's it. I get 6. Yeah. It's less than $20. I'm in and out. It's so good.
Yeah.
And they're boiled dogs, so I mean, it is what it is. But
no, but
I'm
at the same time, but dude, that's a local shop.
Yeah.
We got Gene and Jude's. We got Wrigleyville Dog. Like, you got like a Pizza Puff. You got Byron's Hot Dog Stand in Chicago. Like the White House fucking hot dog. And like people like frequent there. And the thing is, this is like, I miss local because the thing is this, the person that's local, that's their business. Mm-hmm. That's their local business. That's their dream to work that hot. It wasn't like, oh man, I have to work a hot dog stand today.
It's not like a Portillo's or Giordano's or something like that.
Fuck Portillo's.
They're building one like 10 minutes from me right now, and I'm like, chocolate cake shake, baby. I love chocolate shakes though. That's my vice.
When I found out it was made with mayonnaise, I turned off. That's what makes it so moist. Sorry, folks.
Oh, the mayo cake? Yeah, I know that. That's
but no, man, like I grew up being around local shops. My dad was an independent contractor for construction, so like I know what it's like being middle class, and I don't want to get political on this thing, but like we don't have a middle class of America anymore.
No, and that's fine. I mean, we're not. Like, you get to a point where the politics cross over to how it's affected your lifestyle, and that's really what it is. It's taking that stuff away. So obviously Detroit doesn't have like a ton of TV shows about it, but Chicago has an endless amount of media that's been about the place, whether it's movies and some of the more well-known ones, Blues Brothers, Home Alone, stuff like that. Chicago.
Well, hey, don't be crapping on Detroit, man.
I'm not.
My favorite series. Sorry about that. I just got to plug this guy in.
No, you're good.
Favorite one of my favorite movies trilogies is actually based in Detroit, and it's RoboCop. Don't shit on your city, man.
I'm not
is still fucking badass, man.
I'm not shitting on it at all, but there's like
that was my fake bouncer name was Murphy, Alex Murphy, and only one person got the reference when I threw him out.
That's awesome. There's so many things. Like I can remember growing up. So you had like Married with Children, and and I know it wasn't technically it was in Indiana, but it was close with Roseanne.
I mean, we had Family Members, we had the Cosby Show, and everything like that. Like we Family Matters was like groundbreaking because it was
Kenan and Kel. I'll go even there. Kenan and Kel.
That was Los Angeles, I think, or was that Chicago?
No, it was Chicago because there's an episode of that where the stairs are broken at Sears Tower and they have to walk all the way up.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know. The stuff's all just like locked in little memories of it. But to me, that's such an impactful thing. And so when you hear about cities, gentrification, I'll say it, that's what it is, of like taking over mom and pop shops. And it doesn't have to be that it's removing like a certain culture from the area. It's removing all of the culture, regardless of what the culture is. Yeah. It's just taking that and it's commercializing everything. And that's a problem. It really is a problem. I'm from a tiny ass little small town, and for the longest time we didn't have anything. And now we actually have, even though it's like frou coffee shops and stuff and like 7 pizza joints, the place has got like locally owned businesses. There's 3 chain restaurants in the entire town. There's an Arby's, a McDonald's, and a Taco Bell. That's it in the way of like chain. Everything else is like, it's a franchisee, but it's owned by somebody local. Sure, there's a Little Caesars, but it's owned by a dude that lives in town. It's crazy to me how wild things get and how it gets. I'm sorry, we are getting slightly off topic here.
Let's segue into like what's going on. We can do
that. Let's segue.
What do we feel about America, Part 2?
Right. So we've touched base on the drama side of it. We've touched a little bit of base on the football side of it, and you've covered a little bit of your history. So where does really the emergence of Tully come into in the professional wrestling game? When is the time that you really kind of went full bore with it?
You know what, man? Like, so like I started when so you want me to talk about like how I got into pro wrestling, or should I talk
No,
about
so
how
you
I got
talked about
into
how
it?
like you had the decision when you went back to Chicago to go comedy or to go wrestling. Was that really like the uptick into to professional wrestling? Was there like a downturn on
So
comedy?
every summer in wrestling, as I say this, when I started wrestling, I was going to get trained when I was 16. I actually tried out when I was 18 with Windy City Wrestling. I did a fantasy camp. I couldn't commit. And then I was going to do like a seminar with Colt Cabana for AWA Slam. That's a short end of it. And then there was nothing there, but they invited me to that school. And then when I was 20, I hit up this one trainer that trained at Windy City named Steve Boz. And almost every summer, every time I was in like at home in college, because I went to school in Florida, I would go there and get trained. And then like I debuted as a manager, and then I used to do ring interviews because they knew I acted and everything like that. And then when I kept on coming back to college and everything like that, my professor's like, "Yo, man, you need to just do comedy, man. Like, why are you doing wrestling? There's no money in wrestling, you know?" And yeah, I think I just decided just to still have wrestling behind me because like it was just a fun thing to do, really.
And the love is there, and it allows you to express those comedic chops.
Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, for the longest time, like I used to wear a wig and call myself Loverboy Tiberius Tang. And the punchline was every time I would wrestle, the wig would pop off. You know,
I've
because
heard of your 1001 gimmicks, as you've stated.
yeah,
There was
go
1,000. Move to that.
go down the list if we want to, but I think that would be like over 3 hours to talk about those gimmicks. But yeah, I'm the man with 1,001 characters. I used to just do different characters when I do wrestling because in a way it was something to try out. I used to say I would like when a cook makes spaghetti, I will throw it at the wall and see if it sticks.
I think it's amazing that you're able to separate or compartmentalize each of the characters, even if they slightly draw from one another in some way or another. I think that's phenomenal. That shows like a super creative mind to be able to do that constantly. Because I see so many people that'll just stick with one thing, and it's just hey,
Well,
here's a muscly guy, but you're constantly acting.
Well, the thing is this, like, when I started wrestling, I wanted to do something different. Like after I was doing when I was Tully Vision, when I was the ring interviewer, I wanted to do something different. When I was referee, I was like the big ref, you know, the official and everything like that. And then when I started wrestling, I'm like, okay, let me do a character that like isn't your most stereotypical thing. And I was like, what can I do? And I just remember watching, I remember watching this guy from Windy City Wrestling called Gino Latino, and he used to wear this wig. And then I was watching Adrian Adonis, and then I was watching. I was like, you know what? What if I wore a wig? And so I brought a wig to a show, and it was funny. I was doing a battle royal, and they wanted my ring name, and we're all in the back, and I was like, oh, and it was very much William Shatner wig. And I remember like putting my gear on and everything like that. And then all of a sudden the guy's like, oh, what's your name? I'm like, oh, it's Tully Vision. And my buddy Braun the Lumberjack's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, what's my name? He's like, well, your wig like looks like Tiberius. And I'm like, okay, what should my last name be? And then I'm like, and then some guy yelled out from the back, Tang. And so my buddy Braun looked at me. He's like, you know what? From now on, you are Loverboy Tiberius Tang. And all you're going to do is when you come out to Working for the Weekend by Loverboy, you're going to strut to the ring and you're going to run to the ring and the guy's going to pull the rope. But as he pulls the rope, he's going to take that wig and throw it in the crowd. And from then on, I just wore a wig. And I wore different wigs, and I would always play to the crowd. I would always tell the girls that I have more pretty hair than they did. And I've had some fun memories as Loverboy. I've also was like Mr. Clean. That's when I was usually clean shaven. And I was tagging with my old partner, R.I.P. Ricky the Janitor. We were called the Cleanup Crew.
Great name. Great name. I love wrestling tag team names.
And then I was trying to get away from Loverboy, so I remember when Brexit was a thing, and because I'm half British, my mom's from England, so I'm a dual citizen. And I remember hearing about this thing, Brexit, from the EU, like England, like exiting from the EU, and it was called Brexit. And I was like, dude, that sounds like a perfect wrestler name, Brexit. So I decided to be Baron von Brexit, which was very much Colonel de Beers and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I had like this big like beard that looked like Braun Strowman, but like I had like a beret on and had British Bulldog gear that said Brexit. And it was fun, man. And I did a royal for it. And like a lot of the guys were like, what is this, man? Like, what are you doing? And then I remember tagging, and I remember like trying to think of a name. And joke, my buddy Braun told me, he's like, you're going to be called NATO, the new athletic training organization. And I was like, okay. And then I looked at my buddy Ricky, and he was called the Francis Phenom, Francis Bacon, you know. And I was the British brawler, Charles Brexit. Came out to It's Kind of Magic by Queen. It was fun times, but like I've had fun with just coming up with different characters, because like my thing is this, like, it's wrestling. It's all characters. You can be a great technician, you can be a great wrestler, but guess what? People aren't going to remember your wrestling. They're going to remember your character.
I think that's phenomenal, because too many people are set on like, oh, I've got to perfect this guy. Maybe that's not the person. Maybe that's not the character you need to perfect.
Well, the
maybe
thing is this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man. That's
no,
when
you're
like,
good.
This other character came about, when like my buddy John, big shout out to John Bullard, you know, when he looked at me and he was like, hey man, like, because like he wanted me to bring me back, because I used to do this 11th one of the world gimmick where I was like the 11th one of the world Tully. It was just your stereotypical big man.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't want to do that. I want to do you. I want you to be yourself. And I'm like, okay, like, what do you mean by that? He's like, I want you to be Mr. Made for TV. And I'm like, okay, go on. And he's like, you're going to be Mr. Made for TV, Tully Bertorelli. That's what you're going to be. And I'm like, all right. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And so I was watching The Simpsons one day, and I saw Troy McClure, Phil Hartman's character, come on and say, hi, my name's Troy McClure. You might have seen me on such shows as, you know, Baby Gone Back. Seconds. I stole the catch line of, hi, I'm Tully Bertorelli. You decided me such shows as Chicago PD, Empire, and Fargo. And today we're going to talk about safe sex. You know, prom's coming up, gentlemen and ladies. You better protect yourself. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then from being Mr. Made for TV, Tully Bertorelli, I evolved to Tullywood, Tully Bertorelli. Oh, I love it. Because now I'm doing movies. It makes perfect sense. So the character is me, but it's just a little bit heightened.
I like that. And sometimes that is the best place to be at too, because then you might find out things about yourself that you're like, okay, maybe there is a little bit more of that. Like my whole thing was based on the fact that I was wearing a pair of like super short shorts the day that somebody was like, hey, I was in a promo comp and they're like, we need a name. And I was like, here you go. And so that's just where that came out of, but it's not. That is not me. I'll do whatever. I don't really care. It doesn't bug me. But I think that is a phenomenal thing that like you started as yourself, went through this whole big cycle of characters, and you've come back around to really be yourself, but like an enhanced version. And it's really cool.
So my first ever name was Tully Riley, because my trainer told me you don't look like Italian. And I still don't. So I joke with people, I'm like, what's 6'2", almost 295 Italians, you know? Tully Riley, Jack Tully, to go back to Tully Bertorelli now. It's just more fun. And I like, and I know that like it's taboo to have your real name be your wrestling name because anyone can find you. But when you're Mr. Made for TV Tully Bertorelli, or if you're Tullywood Tully Bertorelli,
it's an advertisement.
It's an advertisement. When I talk crap to the crowd, they're like, because I purposely made the ring announcer go through my filmography and say, has appeared on Chicago PD, Empire, Fargo, coming soon to a theater near you, Weekend Getaway, which is going to premiere in September. Be sure to check on every streaming platforms. Please welcome Tullywood, Tully Bertorelli. And I go down the line, and I have people be like, you're not an actor. You haven't been in Hollywood. Like, I'm like, dude.
IMDb, get it out right now.
And I actually did that once when I was wrestling. So I put someone in a headlock, And this fan was like, "You're not an actor." I'm like, "Really? Do me a favor. Go on Google right now, kid." And then the kid Googled me and found my IMDb. He's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm real."
Guy in the headlocks, like, thanks for the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry about that. Sorry. I mean, he's like, kid, Google faster. Like,
yeah. But then also, I mean, like, I'm Tulk Togan. That's another project that I'm working on where I'm just, Hulk Hogan, the punk rock Hulk Hogan. It's more fun.
Oh yeah, got to be more fun than the real one.
Yeah. But yeah, go on.
No, I just think that's super. I think that's super cool. And you're a SAG member.
Yep, I've been in SAG since 2016. I know it was rough during the strike this past summer, but I got back into doing stand-up, which was a lot of fun. So big shout out to my friends in the stand-up world that got to see me do some open mics. That was really fun doing that. I did that in high school, and when I was in college, I opened up for Pete Holmes. Completely bombed, but that's
still got to be like, to bomb for Pete Holmes has got to be kind of a wild thing. I love like Batman and then some of his other stuff that he does.
Oh, his Batman thing is great. My favorite thing he used to do was Food Network when he was doing early stand-up. He used to do a Food Network bit that was like great.
Oh, I love stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy was kind of like my release. Like, I guess that's really where my creative juices kind of kicked off. Was I would go to a local library and they had CDs, but it wasn't like a lot of music CDs. It was a lot of stand-up. So like all the way to like Jack Benny and stuff like that, all the way on up. So I'm going to ask, because I'm usually don't like doing what are your influences, but stand-up comedy, like what struck a chord for you? Is it legends? Is it newer guys?
So it's a little bit of everything. My favorite comedian of all time, stand-up comic, was Robin Williams.
Live at the Met is so good.
His energy, no one could top. My other favorite comedian was Jim Brewer. Goat Boy, very blue collar and everything like that. Just the way he just talks about Metallica and just like he does this bit on alcohol, and it just makes me laugh.
It's Half Baked with him is like, I just love that he was just him.
Yeah. And then my other favorite one recently is the guy who's the Machine.
Bert.
Yeah, he is
Bert twice now, I think.
Yeah, I think that's his name, but he just does so well, just people captivating. And I also like Dave Chappelle, even though there's some stuff he says about, the trans folk community I don't really appreciate, but like I don't like that he makes fun of that. But like the way that Chappelle does comedy, he's a magician. The moment he lights that cigarette and looks right in the eye, that cigarette's his magic wand. It's his in.
Yeah, and that is something you got to look at, like entertainment almost in a microcosm of things, of like, not to like go onto the weird side of it of people's stances, but it's like, can I be entertained by something else that they've said? And I think there is a way to do it, but also acknowledge like, hey, I don't really agree with that. There is some stuff that I do like that they've made, but I'm not going to throw away their whole catalog for this stuff. It's such a weird like equilibrium to find in there.
Also, another comic I love is Chris Rock. He makes the F word beautiful when he talks.
Yeah. My favorite Chris Rock one is talking about. I think it was from like his album in '96, where he's talking about talking about the death penalty and how expensive it is to use an electric chair, and he's like, I ain't paying the electricity bill for that.
Yeah. And then also I love Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor. I love the greats. I do enjoy George Carlin, but like my thing is this. When I mentioned I got bombed from Pete Holmes, he actually listened to my set. I had like 6 to 7 minutes, and I did like the stuff I used to do in high school about life lessons, being the giant in the family, or how I think I'm actually from Krypton because all my family are short. I think I landed in a garden in Chicago in a spaceship that my parents are still hiding in their garage. But I remember I bombed, and I remember when I asked him for feedback afterwards, and he told me this thing that always stuck with me. if people aren't laughing at you, they're listening to you. And it's not that don't always think that they always have to laugh. They're processing what you're saying. You just need to know one thing. I'm like, what's that? He's like, breathe.
So that's great advice. I get as much out of this as anybody that's watching it. Like these things are awesome. So I appreciate you sitting down.
Yeah, of course.
I've never had the I don't want to say the cojones to get up on a stage. It's funny, hand me a mic in a wrestling ring and I'll talk for 20 minutes, but put me on a stage in front of a bunch of people where I don't have like that security blanket of the ropes and the steel of the ring.
I started doing it again just because like I was going through a breakup and I was going through therapy, which I still do. Big shout out to my giants, as I call him, my therapist. He's a giant of a man. I told my therapist straight up, I'm like, I'm thinking about getting back into stand-up. And he's like, why is that? I'm like, because I want to tell stories to complete strangers I don't even know. And he looked right at me. He's like, you have all the right to do it. Do it.
Yeah. And you find ways to tell them.
It was so therapeutic and so much fun. The funny thing I laugh about was not the thing that was funny, but also awesome. A lot of comics are also in recovery, which is really fun to just be in a room with a bunch of people in recovery, not as like 12-step, but like meaning like everyone is also in recovery, man. It's all okay. You can say what you want to say. But also the thing I laugh about too was when people find out what you do, they're huge wrestling fans.
Oh, so many of them.
So I was billed as the most fittest guy in the room once. I was once billed as he might body slam you later. But yeah, I just talked about wrestling and all that stuff. And I remember my buddy Derek introduced me to one of his friends. He's like, he's a professional wrestler. And I'm like, Derek, calm down, dude. Yeah, I know. I do other things too. Like I'm Santa Claus, motherfucker, God damn it.
So the Santa Claus thing, let's touch on that, because Santa Claus, Christmas is my favorite holiday, but it's not for like connotations revolving around a religion. Christmas is my favorite holiday because I love giving. I love giving back to things. With like this podcast every year right before the Christmas holiday, we do a live stream for Better Life. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad. It's the kids and the gaming and the stuff like that. We do that every year. I will fix this, but whatever. We do it. We do a charity stream. None of the money goes through us. Everything. I love giving.
Well, if you need Santa that day, let me know.
We're always down for people to pop in. But my grandfather was a Santa Claus guy. He was a big 6'4" with the real beard Polish guy, and he did it until he just couldn't do it anymore. And so I think that's phenomenal. I love when I find out that people do Santa Claus for events.
So I started in college. I was asked to do a Festival of Lights thing. And before that, I used to dress up as Santa a little bit for my nieces and nephews. But I remember getting a costume in college and not returning it and then thinking, I can do money with this. And so I did some wrestling shows as Santa. And then I started doing grocery stores. I actually was featured in the Chicago Red Eye for being a Santa. But then I took it more seriously probably a couple of years later. And when I was bartending, I was like, look, I don't like this costume I have now. I need to get like a legit suit, because I feel like anyone can get the freaking holiday costume off of of Amazon and be like, oh yeah, this is perfectly fine, So I went to Fancy Costumes and I was like, I made good money bartending. And I was like, I need to get a legit suit. And I found this like awesome suit. I'll send you the photo of my Santa outfit, but it to me, it looks like Santa. And also I do have my beard white. I don't wear a fake beard. I color my eyebrows. I look like the real thing. As my brother says, holy cow, you're typecast. I enjoy doing it for the fact of I just like getting people's reaction, but also it's a way to give back, man. I love doing it, man. I used to do bars. I used to do holiday parties. I used to do a lot of kid stuff. When pandemic was rough, I used to do a lot of shout out videos for it, and everything like that. And I mean, the thing is this, it's just super fun to do. It's a fun character. When the parents find out who I am afterwards, which is really funny, they're like, holy cow, you look like completely different. You know, I do I wear a tank top underneath my suit because it does definitely get hot, but it was really funny when some of the parents see the tattoos. They're like, oh man, I didn't know Santa was that tatted. I'm like, yeah, Santa's got about 64 tattoos.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, it's just a way to just make people believe. I do get a lot of non-believers, and I talk to them. I'm like, hey, you know I'm not the real guy, but did I ever tell you that I actually work for him? And then I make up a story, because you always have to like get the non-believers to get back into real, to believing, because they look at you like, you're not the real guy. I saw the guy last week.
That's very much relevant in professional wrestling as well. What's the phrase that we're always told? Suspend your disbelief.
Yeah,
and it fits into the Santa rule.
When I tell them about how I work for this like organization called the Secret Santa Society and everything like that, and that I was handpicked by St. Nicholas himself, and that if you want to work for the Secret Society of Santa, you basically have to know a Santa, and then he'll guide you through, and basically you'll have to. And I remember one time I was telling this story in front of my brother, in front of some people. My brother's like, SS, really, bro? Like, I think you want to change that. Especially to your Jewish friends, bro. But the thing is this, I like you, as being Santa, you have to like come up with different answers. What do reindeers like to eat? They like to eat celery and cookie. They like to eat celery and carrots. Cookies are for Santa. What's Santa's favorite kind of milk? I'm like, he likes 2% milk, but by the end, like in the beginning of the day, he likes a lot of almond milk. So during the day, if you see him, give him some almond milk, you know. And then at night, he likes 4% milk, you know.
Yeah, got that lactose free, so Santa's not, getting a little uncomfortable under the suit here.
What's Santa's name when he goes to a hotel? Scott Calvin. You know,
it's embroidered. It's monogrammed on there. Speaking of Chicago, yet again, there we are. The Santa Claus took place. I think the northern neighborhoods, but still, that's the greater Chicagoland area. So I don't normally take questions from other people when I'm doing interviews, but I have a question from someone who will remain nameless, and I'm sure by the way that it's worded, you will definitely know who worded it. I've kind of spiced it up a little bit, not really spiced it up a little bit, changed a little bit of things, but we're talking about comics being in recovery and performers of the sort. So the question comes in and it says, pro wrestling is notorious for excess, and we've seen countless legends destroyed by the excesses of the business. As a veteran like yourself, can you give your perspective on why you think that's so prevalent?
Say it again. Like, you mean like, why is addiction so prevalent?
Why is succumbing to the excesses so prevalent, or used to be?
What that word is?
So excessive vices. So let's drinking.
Oh, why is it out there?
Things like that.
The fine thing is this is like, why is it there? Because we're rock stars. You know, it's not so much anymore. You know, I noticed that myself, who is in recovery over 4 years and 3 months and a couple days sober to this day as we talk. But like, I feel like there isn't what it was back in the 80s and 70s. And like, I didn't wrestle in the Attitude Era, so I didn't know what those guys were doing, but it was accessible to all of them. I mean, think about it, man. Mm-hmm. You're on the road for 335 days a year. You train, sleep, eat, work out, wrestling. You party. There's booze. There's pills.
What keeps you going?
Yeah.
What keeps you going to the next town? That's how it's been, man.
I explain people that don't know me. My addiction is like the movie Walk Hard with Dewey Cox.
You don't want none of this, Dewey. It'll ruin your life. Not even once.
What is it? Oh, it's fucking great. Makes sex great. Makes everything. Turns all your worries into, all that stuff was like how I got into drugs. You know? Because I remember, my dad saying, if you ever do drugs, do it with someone that you feel comfortable with. Worst advice ever, but like, It's about trust.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
you trust these people to do the stuff. I never did drugs around any of the guys or anything like that. But when I worked the nightclub life, I felt like a rock star because, hey, I'm fucking doing comedy. I'm wrestling. I'm acting. I'm also
you
working
really
at a
had
bar.
just like a convergence of all kinds of like, not, I don't want to say negative influences from a creative standpoint, but negative influences from like almost a self-destruction standpoint, because you had so much access to the stuff.
Yeah, and when you work the nightlife, man, it's endless, man. You are given everything, you know? And like the thing is, this is like, now that I work a 9-to-5 job, like I don't do stupid stuff. Now, I know some people out there who are California sober, big out, shout to them, like that's cool. My vice is I have a cigar or a non-alcoholic beer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I just don't do the hard stuff. I don't drink and I don't party or anything like that. But like, if I'm at a bar with a bunch of the boys or girls afterwards and they have Heineken NA, which is 0.0, cool. If they have the Guinness 0, sweet. But like, I don't miss going out and getting sloshed. I don't miss texting someone randomly at the end of the night and then waking up the next day and be like, oh man,
Ooh,
what I
whoops.
do. Yeah. But the thing is this, when you become more sober, you become more hyper focused. And I feel like sobriety made me more hyper focused in the last couple of years, because this is the third time I've done it being sober. And this is the longest and hope to be the longest for the rest of my life. But I always explain to people that I'm more focused on my career. I'm more focused on acting. I'm more focused on manifesting that I'm going to make it full time with acting. The school job's my day job. I love it to death. I give back, and that's what I call good karma, because that's what you have to do to give back, to do that stuff. But like, my thing is this is like, I feel like if I wasn't sober, I would just be back to square one.
It really.
Now I don't recommend people to go sober. I don't push onto people. I never did 12-step, you know. I see a therapist to work on things, but like, I don't, you know, tell people to go sober. I have a lot more friends in wrestling and performing that come up to me and ask me like, how'd you do it? And I explain my testimony like I do all the time, you know, and sometimes I do, like, I tell people like, do you want the funny version or you want the stone cold truth? Because the stone cold truth is I'm an addict, you know?
Yeah, it gets to a point where that became one of your daily activities. You know, from struggling with things myself, it became a daily activity. So I was like, well, when am I going to have time to get this in? Because that starts to become like part of your day, where you're like, oh, I've got to have a couple of beers, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. And once that's gone, it kind of opens up a different door to where you're like, oh, hey, I have a bunch of time to focus on other things and definitely more important things. So I applaud you. I think that's fantastic. I think the biggest thing to pull away from that is where you will not tell people to go sober. I don't have a problem with that. I will say, if you think you need therapy, go to therapy. It is a good thing.
Therapy is amazing.
It is fantastic, and you should do
therapy
it.
is not going to the timeout. Therapy is not going to your friend that's a bartender and vomit all over them. Be a licensed therapist.
Yes,
that's the
100%. And I want to bring this back around. So we were talking about, and I hope you don't mind. So one of my favorite shows is Hot Ones, and I've pulled this segment from Hot Ones. I think the guy's a fantastic interviewer, but he does a little deep dive on people's social media, and he'll pull a picture from there, and he wants to ask about it. Now, I hope that this doesn't have anything in the background that would be giving anything away, and I'm only going to flash it on screen. But speaking that we were talking about Dewey Cox and former musicians and things like that, I feel like this is a rather interesting photo, and I love
Halloween.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
So I was at my buddy's Rich place. Big shout out to my buddy Richie. Love him to death. I was at his brother's wedding this year, and it was around Halloween weekend. And basically, like, I was crashing with them, but they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go to a Halloween party." I'm like, "I don't got a costume." "Oh, don't worry about it, man. We'll get you something." And so they look through their trunk and they're like, "You have a choice. You want to be Fat Elvis, or do you want to be Hugh Hefner?" And I'm like, "Fucking Fat Elvis."
Fat Elvis all day long. Give me the jumpsuit, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, That is, yeah, no, that's wonderful. I first off, I love sequin jumpsuits. I think they're one of those like rare things that like Elvis could pull it off. And then Paul London is doing a gimmick right now where he comes out and he's
Bro,
dressed in that.
don't forget the Flying Elvises from the first match from TNA, man.
Oh yeah. No, you got all kinds of stuff. It's absolutely it's wonderful. I love how you can tie almost anything back into wrestling, especially
No,
if you're
dude,
you're a fan.
it's wrestling to like. It's so funny that you can with. So I basically explain wrestling as Camille dell'arte, like theater to people, and I always tell people like even my folks even ask me like, why do you still wrestle? And I'm like, it's my theater. It's my time to go on stage, play a character, set up a ring, and go home. Like, do I make money? Not much, but I put on a show. It's live theater for me. And also, it keeps up with my sobriety in the sense of like, it keeps me busy. You know, Am I the best wrestler on the planet? No, I'm not. But if you ever see me wrestle, I'm very entertaining. You know, I'm a character.
You're gonna remember it.
Yeah, I put this way. I am the punk rock Hulk Hogan for a reason. You know, Hulk Hogan wasn't known for his moves. He was known for his charisma.
He was actually known for his lack of moves, unless you watch his New Japan stuff. But yeah, that's that was the biggest thing to
you
it.
should watch his stuff when he was in when he first started, when he was in Georgia Championship Wrestling. When he was but yeah, like I love stuff from the 80s and 70s. That's basically I look at wrestling style. I like the overtop characters. Like I like watching the overtop characters than some guy like Will Ospreay. Like
you can't deny their physical ability, but
that's the thing is like, would I love to wrestle like Will Ospreay? 100%. Will I ever get there? No.
I look at a guy like I said earlier. I guess this was off air. One of my greatest inspirations in professional wrestling is Goldust, and Dustin Rhodes has taken care of his body because he's been able to work that style where he was the character and you knew the character. And I love that about it because that was a guy who went full commit to a character. He was like, I don't really like it, but I'm going to do the best I can. And I think that was awesome. And I think that's what endeared me to him, is that it was goofy.
Yeah.
So as we're coming up on the end of this, which I would love to, if you're down for it, I feel like you have a million stories to tell, and I would love to sit down with you a second time to do this.
I could talk forever, man.
So, but what we do at the end of the show here is we're going to move you over. We're going to give you the big screen. We're going to give you all the time in the world to talk about whatever you have coming up, whether it's wrestling shows, you know, your school drama productions that are taking place, whatever you want. Feel free to take the time. It is all yours.
Cool. Yeah, I did not see this coming. So what I like to plug in, I will be in a movie called Weekend Getaway that airs in September. If you want more information, go on social media and look up Weekend Getaway. The trailer is up. Actually stars TNA superstar Madman Fulton. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find me at Tully Bertorelli. I do have a Facebook page, but it's personal. And if I don't add you, it's just my personal account. It's for my friends and family, just to keep in touch. But if you follow me on IG, I can answer all your questions. If you want me to do shout-out videos for your family or, like, you know, congratulations on graduating, you can easily just hit me up there. I don't mind doing over-the-top thing there. Yeah, big shout-out to my homie John Buller, my brother from another mother, my wall twin, for always believing me. And also, there's other people out there that I like to thank, but you know who you are by listening in. Yeah, if you ever are down and questioning about sobriety or anything like that, go see a therapist. But the first thing is go to a meeting first. And yeah, one day at a time. Yeah, I'll end it with tune in, same Tully time, same Tully channel.
Love it. Tully, once again, thank you so much. This has been great. Like every single time that I get somebody on here, I enjoy it probably more than the people that are watching it. But I hope that everybody pulls something from everything that they watch on here, and especially this. You have such an impactful story. I think that all of your work that you do in the education world is, bar none, one of the most important things that somebody can do. And I thank you for that. Like I said, from somebody who probably needed that growing up, I'm so glad that kids are getting that, and they're getting it from somebody who cares. So that is such a huge thing. Once again, this has been On a Forklift. I'm the Hoochie Daddy, Ethan James. You can find me at Hoochie Daddy EJ on Instagram. This is Tully Bertorelli. You can find him at Tully Bertorelli on Instagram. This is On a Forklift. You can find us most of the time live every Thursday night at 8 p.m.-ish. This will air on a Wednesday. And we sign off because we're the only wrestling podcast that I know of that is based purely on one match that had Judy Bagwell in it. So we sign off with a little thing that is, we love you, Judy.